Frank Odum, Dr. Musa Suleimana, and Professor Aziz Abdurrahman as co-researchers on this project. It is a great honor to present this policy paper on behalf of the Advisory Board, management, and researchers of the Africa Center for Retirement Research. It is also a privilege to have a room full of important stakeholders, policymakers, international development partners, and multilateral who have special interests in the social and economic well-being of vulnerable groups in our country. The vulnerable groups include old age pensioners, persons with disabilities, less educated workers, women and children, especially widows and orphans. Social Security is the biggest social intervention program in any country and has a big say in fighting poverty, bridging socioeconomic inequalities, and building an all-inclusive society and sustainability for better lives. Indeed, these are three important United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that are closely related in terms of impact and outcomes. We're talking about Goal 1, Goal 8, and Goal 10. Minimizing inequalities of all forms is relevant to poverty prevention and strengthening social cohesion. Talking about a case where we leave no one behind and just pursuing oneness of the world. It is, however, sad that we live in a world where the top 10% richest people own 52% of global income, while the bottom half owns 8.5%. The picture is even worse in sub-Saharan Africa, where the top 10% richest people have captured and own a gargantuan 55% of national income, as compared to just 8.3% for the poor half down there in the African continent. You would agree with me that this is not acceptable, especially for a world and a continent that is committed to fighting poverty, social and economic injustices. And indeed, 65% of the world population live in countries where inequalities are on the rise with commensurate increments in poverty levels. It is established that the happy peoples live in countries where inequalities are constantly put in check and kept at the barest minimum. What is the inequality situation like in Ghana? Considerable economic disparities exist between the active working class and the retired population, but inequalities among retirees presents a bigger problem. According to the Ghana Statistical Service Inequality Report, any inequalities among Ghanaian workers are large, depending on the sector and type of work. The variations in earnings during the active service translate into old age pension income inequalities. Income disparities among Ghanaian retirees can be seen as a major development challenge. We need strong redistributive policy measures to close the income gaps among retirees, and this can be achieved through the social security structure and its provisions. On the flip side, however, social security financing worldwide has come under extensive strain, and this is attributable to considerable changes in demography and economic crisis more recently. The last three actuarial valuations of the SSNIT scheme have given a strong indication that the scheme's medium to long-term financial sustainability is in doubt. This has been attributed to considerable changes in demography and economy, coupled with the impact of structural pension reforms in 2008. The Africa Center for Retirement Research has been analyzing the demographic and financial trends of the last three actuarial valuation reports of the SSNIT scheme. The scheme's liabilities, we're talking about expenditure on benefits and administrative costs, are closing up with revenues, that is talking about contribution plus investment incomes. The proportion of income used for expenditure increased from 37% in 2014 to 65% in 2017, and then to 79% in 2020. The excess revenue over expenditure has declined from 4 billion in 2014 to 2.4 billion in 2017, and then to just 0.76 billion in 2020. This have reflected the declining growth rates of the reserves. The reserves increased by 32% between 2014 and 2017, and just by 8% between 2018 and 2020, and could be lower between 2021 and 2023. At this point, as stakeholders, we now know we have a two-edged problem whose solution requires innovation and deliberate policy measures to improve benefit distribution and sustainable benefit financing. And that is exactly what we'll be looking at today.
JYTV News. Keep watching JYTV every time.
Sorry. Yeah, so basically we are looking at an innovation that is very transparent. It has an inbuilt sustainability factor, and it will distribute benefit squarely, equitably, and fair. And the second one has to do with improving the long-term financial sustainability of the first-year pension system. Changes in demography and economy have adversely impacted social security programs around the world. So this is not a Ghanaian problem. Of course, we're talking about demography. Rapidly aging populations around the world have increased retirement rates. And the increase in retirement rates have in fact impacted worker beneficiary ratio and ultimately income expenditure equations. And they have actually put social security systems under serious financial strain. The changes have affected the retirement income security of workers and pension systems' ability to finance benefits into the long term. That is, we're talking about financial sustainability. So countries have been responding to the changes in demography and economy because it has come along with a lot of challenges. And so countries are responding to the economic crisis and responding to changes in demography. And how are they responding? They are responding through their pension indexation policies. And that is how come ACR needed to investigate into how effective the redistribution policy in Ghana is. So most countries are reviewing their pension indexation policies according to the OECD in 2023. Reform strategies have really focused on increasing benefits for low-income earners, that is poverty release, and bridging economic inequalities while improving sustainable financing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so as I did indicate, countries have been responding to the changes in demography and economy. You see, we had COVID in the year 2020, 2021. And these are the countries that have responded through their policies, and they have all responded through their pension indexation policies. Look at the country. You see 2022 is very, very crowded in terms of policy reforms. And the main focus was to enhance retirement income security for poor pensioners. And some have even gone to the extent of changing the frequency of indexation. Croatia, for instance, had to change from indexing pensions once in a year to twice in a year. They do that in July and in December. And many countries have actually changed the number of times they index pensions in a year. In 2023, we had many, many countries, but I just decided to pick just a few. United Kingdom, Germany, Hungary, Poland, Netherlands, they have all undertaken some pension reforms through their indexation policies. And the main focus, again, is to improve benefit to low-income earners. What are the basis of pension indexation? In some countries, they do that in line with prices. Others do that in line with growth in wages. Others put together the two, as we have in Ghana. We have a blend of the two, though it lacks a little bit of transparency. I'm sure we'll be talking about that. The choice of an indexation method could impact the total cost of benefits. The type that you pick from here, whether you are reviewing pensions in line with price increases, or you are reviewing pensions in line with wage increases, or you are combining both, it has a lot of implication on the total cost of benefits and the effectiveness of the redistribution. Yeah, so this is basically telling us that increasing pensions in line with price increases is not only the most effective, it is also the most dominant in the world. As we can see over here, all these countries are indexing or increasing pensions in line with increasing inflation or price increases in the market. You can see how crowded this place is. Purely consumer price index inflation. Now, these people, they just don't give you the 100% increment in price inflation, but they also look at the wage growth and give you a percentage of it. The wage growth, if the wages have grown by 5%, they give you 100% increases in inflation plus 5% wages. That is what these countries do. So Czech Republic, they give you 100% consumer price inflation plus 50% of the recorded growth in wages. Latvia, they will give you 50 to 80 in wages. Then Poland, they just give you 20% growth in wages plus 100% of the consumer price index. These countries, they have agreed. So I think this is very, very, very transparent. They are telling you that at the end of the year, when we are indexing pensions, we are giving you 20% price increases and 80% wages. We are giving you 80% price increases and 20% wages. It's agreed. So everybody is working towards growing the economy. Estonia, 20 price inflation, 80% wage growth. Finland, 80% price inflation, 20% wage growth, etc. These countries, Luxembourg and United Kingdom, what they are doing basically is to compare the highest of the two. If they compare price inflation, they compare wage inflation. The highest of the two is what they will use. Then in Germany and Lithuania, basically they use purely wage increases to index pensions. So these are bases. As you can see, consumer price index is the dominant indexation variable in earnings related pension systems. While we have all these strategies, whether you are using only price inflation, you are using only wage inflation, or you are using both, there have been some frameworks. Best practices are coming up with regards to how to index pensions. So it can be distributed very well, and it can also sustain schemes, especially in periods where we have challenges in demographic and economic factors. So best practices have been coming up, and some frameworks have been listed by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. 1, increasing pensions to low earners at rates that are higher than pensions to high earners is highly recommended. It's one of the best practices and is clearly stated in the frameworks. They are also telling us that in exceptional times, it may be fair that high-income pensioners share some of the pain by receiving reduced benefit adjustments. At the end of the year, it's not everybody who should get the same. The high-income earners need to, be ready to accept some of the pain by accepting a lower increment rate as compared to poor pensioners. And this will clearly reflect the social security principle of solidarity. And also, there have been calls for means testing cost of living increases. Means testing. It's not wholesale. they would have to look at where you sit on the payroll, then give you the rate. So this model suggests that the rate of increment should be based on the retiree's income, said that retirees receiving above some specific threshold do not receive the full annual increase. Those are frameworks, those are best practices that are coming up. Pension indexation in Ghana, the model we are currently using, what is its impact economically and socially? And how do we respond by policy? We can see that almost all countries in Asia, Europe, and in the West, everybody is running around in the, undertaking pension reforms in order to improve benefit redistribution and also to sustain their schemes financially. But it appears countries in Africa have gone to sleep. And I think that is why this conversation is very, very, very important, because the first thing the Africa Center for Retirement Research did was to try to see how effective the pension indexation provision is, as far as the Ghanaian situation is concerned. So what we did was to pick the payroll in 4 indexation windows from 2020 to 2023. That was what we did. We wanted to see how the benefits are distributed among the pensioners. How is it spread? How is the variation done? Is it effective? And of course, the effectiveness of it would depend on the indexation model that you are applying. When we did that over 4 indexation windows, what we found was that there is high poverty incidence among Ghanaian pensioners. 3 in every 5, we are talking about 60%. 60% of Ghanaians are considered poor. That is, if you look at poverty threshold of $2 per day. That is the poverty threshold for Ghana, $2 per day. And when we situate it into this one, we realize that 60% of Ghanaian pensioners are considered poor, and they struggle to live very well in retirement. They struggle, really. We also found that we have a growing economic gap, inequities between the poor, low earners and rich, high earners. And it increases over time. The inequities were significant and it increases over time. Anytime we index pensions, using the model that we have, we are opening the economic gap between the rich and the poor. And that is at variance with the social security principle of solidarity. It's at variance with the practices of the world. It's at variance with the trends that we have in other parts of the world. High cost of living, especially during the COVID, has actually deepened economic inequalities among retirees. And poverty relief mechanisms have not been effective as far as the current model is concerned. And I've mentioned this one. The last 3 actuarial valuation reports reveal an unsustainable funding status of the first pillar scheme: demography, economy, and the structural pension reforms in 2008. It has actually weakened the strength of the first tier scheme, and all that has been highlighted in the last 3 actuarial valuation reports. And as I mentioned, the model that you use to index pension has a lot of impact on the total cost of benefit, and it's impacting on the financial situation of the scheme overall. So we're looking at impact assessment of the current pension indexation model, and we realize that it promotes increasing economic disparities between the rich and the poor, and I think I've mentioned this one. I also mentioned that poverty relief measures under the current pension indexation policy is not sufficient. Poverty relief measures are put in place by policy in order to lend more support to poor pensioners in the pensioner population or on the payroll. You see what is happening over here. The minimum pension is one of the poverty relief measures. And what has happened is that minimum pension has increased each year from the year 2000 all the way until 2017. 2017, what did you go? I think it increased all the way up to 2016. Then in 2017, it was not increased. It increased in 2018. Then it did not increase. Then it went to 2019. From 2019 all the way up to 2025, the minimum pension has been at just 300 Ghana cedis. Something that we consistently increase in this country as a poverty relief measure. And this is what we are seeing. Whereas the poor pensioners have been stuck down there at 300 Ghana cedis every month, you see the highest earner is running away. Anytime we index pension, this is what is happening. In 2019, what do they call it? When the minimum pension was increased from 278 in 2019 to 300 Ghana cedis, it has remained at 300 Ghana cedis all the way up to 2025. But what at that, look at what is happening to the highest earning pensioner over the period. We all know when you are computing survivor's benefit, when somebody dies on the scheme, and survivor benefit is being computed. It's very simple. They take your monthly pension at the time of death and multiply it by a factor depending on when you died, between 60 and 75. And this factor is what we call an annuity factor. The factor is resting between 2 and 93, approximately. So they take your last monthly pension or your pension at the time of death and multiply it by this factor. So this one is telling us that, I don't know this person, don't report me. If anything should happen to this gentleman, anytime soon, everybody is going to be in trouble. And it's adding to the financial situation of the scheme. Survival benefit, if we don't regulate how much we increase pension for high pension earners, we are just increasing survival benefit, and it's having a toll on the financial situation of the scheme. We wanted to really understand how the pensioners feel. We just don't look at the data and just feel that, okay, there is high poverty incidence. But how do they really feel, considering the amount of money they are being paid by the pension system? In a sample survey of 1,700 pensioners that we spoke to across all the 16 regions of Ghana, so demographically, it was very balanced. The survey revealed that 7 in 10 retirees feel that the benefit provided under the Social Security program is inadequate. 3% said the benefits are just adequate, just enough to keep them going. But majority of them are telling us that it's something we have to look at. Almost 4 in 5, 78% of respondents strongly agreed that the pension indexation policy must be reformed to reflect full price increases and to provide equitable and improved financial protection for poor pensioners. So it's like we have a consensus here. The pensioners themselves are telling us that it's about time we review, as stakeholders, it's about time we review the pension indexation provision so that we can make more, improve the benefit provisions, we can make more for poor pensioners, in line with the very objective of Social Security, income, retirement security. So whereas 78% are telling us that, hey, yes, please review the indexation policy, 3% somewhat agreed. I mean, like somehow indifferent, somehow agreed. 1% told us that, no, we don't want any trouble. Please leave it as it is. And you can imagine those guys who said no. They are the ones at the top there. 1% strongly disagreed. 5% somewhat disagreed, but 14% said they have no opinion at all. They said they have no opinion. Whatever happens, they are good to go. These are some of the issues. High poverty incidence, growing economic inequalities amongst the pensioner population, as we are being told. Flaws are not okay. Relief mechanisms that we have in place are not good, and it's leading to a lot of complaints. But apart from all of this, as stakeholders, it is our responsibility to review the pension system in order to make it more efficient and effective for the beneficiaries. And what we are saying is that, given these problems, a deliberate and well-targeted indexation policy reform is needed, and this will be consistent with the widely pension reform that we have all over the place. Globally, everybody is undertaking pension reforms, and the focus is to make more money for the poor people so that we can really ensure that we are one world. A well-targeted, deliberate policy is needed. So what do we do? So that is where ACR is coming. And remember, I gave you the frameworks within which countries have been indexing pensions. They are saying they are telling us that in special cases, we have to talk to those who are earning more to understand. They should share some of the pain so that we can make room for those who are poor. They are also telling us that it is about time we use the means testing approach. We give you the fixed rate based on how much you are receiving. Because if we don't do that and the scheme collapses at a certain point, everybody will be suffering. So let's understand. So we have an alternative, pension indexation. And the alternative that we are proposing over here is based on the means testing approach. We suggest that currently, January is the most exciting period, or is the most exciting month for Ghanaian pensioners, because that is when pension increments are done by the social security system. So everybody is excited in January. Now, how did they do it? The Social Security and National Insurance Trust and the National Pension Regulatory Authority, based on several analysis, they agree on what we call an overall rate of indexation. Once they agree on the overall rate of indexation, they then split it into what we call a fixed rate and a flat amount. The fixed rate is given to everybody on the payroll. Whether you are a poor pensioner or you are a privileged pensioner, everybody is given a fixed rate as has been agreed. Then a flat amount. As stakeholders of pension administration in Ghana, as we see it in the law, we see the flat amount that is given in the pension indexation formula as a redistributive factor. It's kind of trying to make room for the poor pensioner. But in actual sense, it doesn't achieve its purpose. And I'm saying it doesn't achieve its purpose because the research did, data simulation of indexation trend from 1991 all the way up to 2024. And what we found was that the fixed rate accounted for 91% of the net increase. Whereas the flat amount that we've seen as a redistributive factor for the poor pensioners is just accounting for 9%. So it means it's highly ineffective. Something we are seeing as using to support the poor pensioners is just accounting for 9% of the what? Of the net increment. But the fixed rate that you give across to everybody is accounting for 92%. So we are saying that instead of awarding an equal fixed rate increment for all pensioners, privileged and poor, vary the fixed rate, said that high monthly pension earners receive a moderately lower fixed rate as compared to low monthly pension earners. That is the proposition. And the main objective is to minimize the spread in monthly pension amounts in equities and to minimize the total pension cost. It will improve cost of benefits management. That is what this new proposition is going to do. Apart from that, it is very, very, very transparent. It has an inbuilt financial sustainability factor in there, and it will effectively distribute benefits among the pensioner population. And so we are using a mathematical model, and the objectives that I've just mentioned in here are built into the mathematical program. All you need to do is to key in, anyway, we'll come there. And so what we did was that we broke it down. Now we are saying index pension, don't give fixed rate to everybody on the payroll. The person is receiving 186,000 every month in pension. You are going to index pension for 12% fixed rate, and such a person is also receiving. Meanwhile, you turn around and complain that, hey, the scheme is going for a crash because of changes in demography and economy. It's about time we rethink how we index pensions. So we broke it down into 5 bands. First band, high earners, those who receive 10,000 Ghana cedis and more. Second band, second high earners, those who receive between 6,000 and a little less than 10,000. Third band, high earners, 3,000 to just a little below 6,000. Then the fourth band, moderately low earners, 1,000 and 3,000. And fifth band, these are the poor pensioners. You can imagine how you are going to struggle if you receive 900 Ghana cedis at the end of the month and you have to live with it for the month. So we broke it down into 5 bands like this. I'm going to read this one. The mathematical optimization technique is programmed to find an optimal proportions of year-end price inflation, i.e., that should be awarded to the various payment bands for a fair and equitable distribution of pension income whilst reducing indexation cost. So we have written a mathematical program with the objectives in there. And as it is currently being done, at the end of the year, usually SSNIT will take price inflation from January to November, because by the time the pensions are indexed, by the time it is announced, we wouldn't have had December inflation rate, because December inflation rate is announced in January. So usually they take inflation rate from January to November. Find the average. So it is based, this average that you are seeing in there is actually the purchasing power that has been lost by the pensioners in the previous year, which they are coming to replace. And the normal circumstance for effective indexation, it is this rate that should have been awarded, as we see in other places, including the United States and many other places. So when we take the average from January to November, what we are saying is that the computer program, we have at the back of our mind that we want to redistribute benefits very well, and we also have to save some money for the trust because of its financial situation. When we put in the average from January to November, the program is going to stand up how much, what percentage of the year-end average should be awarded to the various bands. I think this one will do it very well for us. Great. So the first band, they received 10,000 plus. In 2021, everybody received 9.34%. Everybody, including those who are receiving 186,000 every month. So what the program is telling you is that give these people 25% of the annual average. Instead of giving them everything, give them 25% of the year-end average. This one, second band, it is the mathematical program that is turning it up. And the program is written based on objectives. And the first objective is what? We want to improve the redistribution. We want to improve the dispersion. And the second has to do with, we want to save some money. So these people are receiving 40% of the year-end average. Third band, 50% of the year-end average. Fourth band, they are receiving, you see, they are receiving more than 100% of the annual average for that year, 110%. And these people, very poor ones, they are receiving 125% of the annual average. In 2022, everybody received 9.68%. So we are saying no. Let's give 25%, 40% of the whatever. In 2023, inflation averaged 31%. So in a way, this model is coming to protect the scheme from inflationary risk. Inflation averaged 31% in 2020, in 2022, yes, actually. So we are saying, no, don't give all the AI to them, the annual average. Don't give everything. Give them 20%, give them 30%, 40%, 80%, and 110%. This way, we are actually practicing the social security principle of solidarity. The variation-based model represents a better. So how do we arrive at this conclusion? What we did was that we put together the indexations, the distribution for using the current indexation model. Then we applied the newly proposed model. Then we tried to measure the distribution. How effective is the distribution on the existing model and on the newly proposed model? And what we found was that the variation-based model represents a better, more effective, and more efficient pension redistribution alternative. And this one was based on measures of dispersion. We had to do a lot of calculation to measure how spread, how the dispersion looked like, how the variance looked like. So standard deviation, the coefficient of variation, the range, and the mean absolute deviation. All of these statistical, measures have shown that the economic gap between the rich and poor pensioner gets narrowed year on year under the variation-based retribution mechanism. The variation-based model will directly impact 3 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It's going to reduce poverty, it's going to bridge socioeconomic inequalities, goal 10, and building an all-inclusive society. We all supposed to see ourselves as one, all-inclusive, and better lives for everybody. United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we have to have an eye on it. Key policy recommendations. So these are recommendations for all of us as stakeholders. The government and stakeholders should consider the following. 1, implement deliberate policies to improve benefits for poor pensioners. It's as simple as that. Number 2, improve the financial integrity of the first-year scheme by reviewing the existing pension indexation policy. And we're saying you should consider adopting the proposed variation-based redistribution method. Number 3, strengthen the poverty relief mechanisms by standardizing the parameters for increasing the minimum pension each year. If you go through all the countries that we have reviewed, they have a formula that is used to increase minimum pension. It's not ad hoc. Oh, I mean, this year I'm the Director General. I've woken up, I've looked around, and I see that no, we can't increase minimum pension, so it should stay there. No, it should be based on a formula, it should be transparent. And that is one good thing about this model. It's more transparent, it's not based on any ad hoc thing. It's scientific, it's mathematical, and fair. And what is more, it has an inbuilt financial sustainability factor. That is what everyone is concerned about. So some countries may use wage growth or GDP growth rate to increase the minimum pension. I'm actually expecting that we have a new political administration in place. I'm very, very hopeful that in January 2026, we are going to have an increment in the minimum pension, which is currently resting at 300 Ghana cedis and has been there for the last 7 years. Further justification for the variation-based model. It fully applies the social security principle of solidarity. That is, the model takes into account diverse diversity of circumstances and needs of heterogeneous subgroups, income groups in the population. It takes your circumstance, it takes my circumstance, it takes her circumstance. Diversity of the circumstance in heterogeneous groups. The model, the one special thing about the model also is that it represents a concrete policy plan for an excellent balance between benefit adequacy and financial sustainability. Dr. Udum talked about it. It represents a concrete policy plan, well defined, to create a balance between benefit adequacy and financial sustainability. And those are very key objectives of every social security administration. It's more transparent method of indexation. More transparent. Listen to what happened. In 2022, inflation ran away. Inflation skyrocketed and went all the way to 31%. And everybody was complaining. So pensions were increased at a fixed rate of 19% in 2023. Then in 2023, inflation did not even stop. It increased even further to 40%. As the Social Security Administration gave a 10% fixed rate. 31%, you give the person 19%, now it's 40 and you give the person 10%. It means there is some element of ad hocness in the process. What is more, as at November 2024, inflation was averaging 23%. And what did we see? We saw a fixed rate increment of 8% in 2025. If you follow the trend all the way from 1991 all the way up to 2025, pension indexation, you realize that we are not being scientific. We are not distributing benefits fairly, and it's impacting on the social security system. Now we have new elements in the picture. Demography, rapidly aging population is impacting retirement rates, and it's impacting worker beneficiary ratio, it's impacting income expenditure. It is altering the timing and content of benefit paid by the social security system. Economy. COVID actually impacted on almost all economies, and most countries are struggling to take inflation back to pre-pandemic levels. Everybody is struggling, and most countries recorded negative economic growth. What is the impact of COVID specifically on social security system? It impacted investment outcomes, negative real growth on investment. Of course, if inflation is very high, the real returns on the investments is going to be negative eventually. It also led to high cost of indexation, because indexation is based on inflation. So if the inflation is very high and you want to effectively replace, definitely it's going to lead to high cost of indexation. And in the Ghanaian situation, there is a third culprit in the picture. The 2008 pension reform actually broke the financial strength of the SSNIT scheme. It's not subject to argument. Remember, the provisions or the changes in the provision actually reduced income to the scheme from 15% to 11% effectively. It also increased retirement rates because it has reduced the qualifying months from 240 months to 180 months. It also increased the lifetime benefit from 12 years to 15 years. And all these provisions actually impacted on the SSNIT scheme as we have. And that is why all those have reflected in the last three actual valuation reports. We have kept somewhere that there is a need for government to step up in restoring the financial sustainability or the funding deficit of the SSNIT scheme. As I mentioned to you, revenue is, cost is catching up with revenues. And the reserves are growing at a decreasing pace. It grew by 32% from 2014 to 2017. Then it grew by just 8% between 2018 and 2020. It will be interesting to see the rate of growth between 2021 and 2023 when we have the new actual valuation report. So I say this one is more transparent. I gave you a reason why this one will be more transparent rather than what we currently have in place. If it is 30% and you give the person 19% fixed rate, when it is 40%, it's supposed to go up. But we have to look at the flip side. A pension indexation model that does not, what do they call it, replace incomes, or that is not in line with prices, or it does not increase in line with prices, is basically pushing its members into poverty over time. It is very important. In my opening, I indicated, how unfair economic and social justices have plagued the world, have plagued countries. And remember what they said. Countries where inequalities are kept in check and kept at the barest minimum, that is where you find happy people. I think it's about time as development partners, as development agencies, we have to spend a lot of attention and invest in activities that seek to bridge socio-economic inequalities. And based on this, it appears like we have one leg in already. We have one leg in the sense that the current political administration in Ghana has pledged to undertake major legislative and parametric reforms to make the pension system more efficient. I'm taking that from the manifesto policies of the administration. The government has also indicated plans to review the existing pension indexation policy to protect poor pensioners against possible increases in the cost of living. The problem has been identified, but how do we approach it? How do we find a solution to it? It needs deliberate, very innovative policy measures in order to cure poverty among the pensioner population. As experts on the subject, we hope to engage and encourage the government and stakeholders to consider implementing the recommendations of this policy research. This will prove impactful on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I think we all want to have that. Thank you very much for your attention, please.
Thank you, Mashoud. Thank you so much. Always spot on. We had him on radio several times, and we knew from then, about how many years ago, 2-3 years ago, from then that something must be done about our pensions. And I'm saying again that until you start checking what your actuarial, how the calculations are, you would know that, look, our pensions are nothing to write home about. Thank you for reiterating the point one more time. Well, okay, there's still, so we may start with, I'm sure we have concerns, we have questions, and I have 1,001 questions. It's ready.
JYTV News. Keep watching JYTV every